The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, my name is Jeff Jordan, and I want to welcome you to this webinar on the 2019 postal rate changes. This webinar is in one of a series of webinars presented in conjunction with the National Postal Forum. The next National Postal Forum is scheduled for May 5th through the 8th, 2019 at the Indianapolis Convention Center in Indianapolis, Indiana. To receive an extra 10% off your 2019 NPF registration, be sure to check the box labeled, I have a different discount code, and then enter the code MARK 2019 into the discount code box, and then click Apply. For the vendors on the call, don't miss out on the premier marketing event for mailing professionals and USPS business customers. Exhibit where you can reach your target customers effectively and efficiently. Booth spaces are assigned on a first-come, first-served basis, so act quickly. Go to the NPF website for the latest information at www.npf.org. If you have any questions during this webinar, please use the dialog box that appears on the GoToWebinar controls. In addition to covering the prepared remarks, we'll answer as many of those questions as time allows. So let's get started. Mark, what will we cover in today's webinar?
Jeff, thank you very much, and thanks to everyone who's joined us today. I want to let you know that the PowerPoint and the recording will be available online shortly after this webinar. This rate case was announced on October 11, 2018, and is set to go into effect on January 27, 2019. The new rates represent about a 2.5% increase over the current prices for mailing or market-dominant products, and a 3.9 to 12.3% increase for shipping or competitive products. We'll cover those categories in further detail in just a little bit. Interesting, this price increase came in the absence of implementing the PRC recommendations for changing the rate-making process, and that was published back in December of 2017. We'll talk about the delayed implementation of dimensional pricing or dim weight pricing changes. We'll talk about updated postage statements and the 2019 mailing promotions for first-class mail and USPS marketing mail. After we cover all that, we'll walk through an implementation checklist for actions managers should take before and after the implementation date of January 27th, 2019.
January 27th. That's a Sunday, isn't it?
That's right, Jeff. For the last several years, the Postal Service has implemented the rate changes on Sundays. This is a good move for mailers and the Postal Service. While mail may only be delivered 6 days a week, many operations in the print and mail industry operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Even shops that only deposit mail Monday through Friday often begin processing work on Saturday afternoon or Sunday evening. When you and I began the industry decades ago, rate changes meant changing the charts on fan scales, setting the defaults on meters, or installing new chips. Today, software drives our industry, from creating mailing statements, mail.dat files, and eDocs, to actually running machines that handle, produce, and meter the mail. Most of the software updates will automatically take place on Sunday the 27th. That means managers can take advantage of the extra day to run additional tests on their equipment and production software.
The rates for shipping services and other competitive products are calculated separately from the market dominant prices and even require a separate filing. However, the changes will also go into effect on January 27th. Would you walk us through those changes?
Certainly, Jeff. Let's start with Priority Mail Express. All Priority Mail products are zone-based, so the dollar amount you see here are with Zone 1. You need to know your mail and know where you're shipping to find your exact costs. The increase is slightly higher in cost on the retail side, but about the same percentage, 3.2%, as the commercial base. As you can see, each category saw a 95-cent price increase. There are additional fees, and they're staying the same as they were in 2018, with $12.50 for Sunday delivery and $5 before 10:30 a.m. delivery. This is the third year in a row that these fees have stayed the same. It's also important to note that the Postal Service is the only major carrier that delivers on Saturdays at no extra cost. There were slightly lower increases ranging from 70 cents to 72 cents for commercial rates. The same extra fees applies, including an additional 20 cents if the packages are non-IMPB compliant.
Mark, on the rate chart, there's a commercial, but commercial base and commercial plus. Can you explain the differences?
Absolutely. The commercial base prices are for click and ship customers mailing regional rate boxes, registered end users of USPS approved PC postage products when using a qualifying shipping label, customers using permit imprint, priority mail open and distribute customers using permit imprint with a qualifying address labels, and permit holders using merchandise return services for mail pieces returned at priority mail prices. It's also available for customers using USPS approved information-based indicia, that's IBI postage meters, that print the IBI with the appropriate price marking and electronically transmit transactional data to USPS. Commercial plus prices are available to priority mail customers who qualify for the commercial base and whose cumulative account volume exceeds a combined 5,000 letter size and flat pieces. That includes flat rate envelopes, but not padded flat rate envelopes, or 50,000 total pieces in the previous calendar year, and have a customer commitment agreement with the Postal Service. However, there's now no difference in commercial base and commercial plus. We're provided a third side on the standard priority mail category that demonstrates that. I expect that next year there'll be no commercial plus designation. For industry veterans, this is very similar to the merging of 3-digit and AADC rates in commercial first-class mail.
And along with this change, there are even more savings commercial rates over retail rates in priority mail.
That's right, Jeff. The retail rates for flat rate jump between 5.1% for the medium box up to 9.7% for a flat rate envelope. Compare that with the commercial rate changes. Only 6.1% increase for a flat rate and a 0.4% decrease for the medium box. This means that the discounts for commercial flat rate envelopes goes from a quarter to 40 cents. In the medium flat rate box, the discount jumps from 80 cents to $1.55. Now, some companies have delayed introducing the software or hardware necessary to obtain the commercial rates. But with these deeper discounts, that upgrade is worth the investment. I also want to point out the APO, FPO, and DPO flat rate boxes. APO is the Army Post Office, FPO is the Federal Fleet Post Office for the Navy and Marines, and DPO is the Diplomatic Post Office. Those are the addresses used if you're shipping to a service member or someone in the State Department who's on board a ship or that is out of port, or in the Air Force, Army, Marines, or stationed overseas. Based on the real requirement and the request from families and friends to support our service members overseas, the Postal Service provides this service at $1.50 less expensive than the standard flat rate box.
So the remainder of this webinar will focus on the market dominant rate changes. Any comments before we get started?
You know, Jeff, the headlines in the popular press back in October focused on the 5-cent increase, which was a 10% increase for the price of a first-class stamp. This led to headlines like, USPS seeks the largest rate hike ever. This isn't true. This isn't the biggest rate increase. For many commercial mailers, the increase is lower than expected. It's lower than the rate of inflation. While retail customers may have sticker shock on the 10% increase in stamps, the nickel increase allows the Postal Service to achieve the simplicity of structure of pricing. In other words, they're rounding up from the penny.
So how did the rates break out for first-class mail?
So first-class mail is just like the shipping services we talked about earlier, and there's two categories, retail and commercial. Retail are the single-piece rates, and commercial is when you're using meters, permits, or have volume and sorting discounts. As I mentioned, there's the potential sticker shock on the 10% increase of the stamp. However, whenever the USPS increased rates by a few pennies, there were always comments like, why are you using pennies? Why aren't you rounding up? So this year, the Postal Service rounded up. Also, if you look at the chart, second ounce rates actually go down, which allows more simplification. Flats pricing stays flat, as do postcards. For commercial mailers, and that's most of the people who are on this call, your first-class letter pre-sorts have gone up by different amounts depending upon how fine your sort is. The largest increase are with single-piece letters. Metered single-piece rates were set 3 cents below stamped prices in the past, and that's been extended to a nickel savings. However, a 3-cent increase is a big hike, 6.4% in that category. So the lower increases for pre-sorted mail will be a big selling point for service bureaus in the coming months. The mixed AADC and AADC rates are increasing by only 0.4 cents, while the 5-digit category is increasing by 1/2 of 1 cent. Those new rates are now 7.2, 8.8, and 11.7 cents lower than a metered single piece.
Great.
Those are substantial savings. In good news for most commercial mailers, the Postal Service is retaining the 0.3 cent per piece discount when using the Full Service Intelligent Mail Barcode, or IMB.
So, Mark, what's going on with the USPS marketing mail?
So the rate for USPS marketing mail is not quite as straightforward as first-class mail, as the mail entry point has a significant impact. We're going to have to stay at a fairly high level during this review, but mailers, I implore you, take the time to know your mail, how it's shaped, what it weighs, where you're entering it, and how you're sorting it to make sure you understand the full impact of this rate increase. For example, for letters, our charts show the difference between a mixed origin submission, Destination Network Distribution Center, or DNDC, or Destination Sectional Center Facility, DSCF entry. In other words, the closer to the carrier that the mail enters the Postal Service, the lower the prices. For the listeners who use a vendor to create and enter their marketing mail, set up some time with your vendor and have them explain to you how they plan on achieving the lowest possible rate for your mail. We'll cover that again later in the webinar. I want to add one other point. Not only is there still a discount for full service IMB, but for USPS marketing mail, and that includes nonprofit marketing mail, it's tripling from 0.1 cent to 0.3 cent. That's significant, and again, implore people to take advantage of full service IMB.
Next chart. So, Mark, I've noticed that for periodicals, you've only included bullet points and not charts. Why is that?
Well, that's because periodical rates are based on a large number of variables. Content, is it advertising versus editorial? Outside counting, inside counting, machinable flats, non-machinable flats, containers, pallets, and bundles, and I think even a few more. People who mail in this category need to be experts or need to hire experts to select the best way to prepare and present their mail to the Postal Service. When we work with customers who have periodicals, we even go find an expert that we trust to bring in. Comparing content, preparation costs, and postage to find the best solution for your organization. As I've said before, you need to know your mail. That's especially true in this rate class. While the overall increases for periodicals are directly in line with CPI, the distribution of those increases is dependent on size. So unfortunately, smaller, low-volume publications will see a larger increase, while larger, heavier, high-volume periodicals will see an increase lower than CPI. Again, this comes down to the USPS better allocating the actual cost to process periodicals.
So finally, there's some changes within the extra services and fees. It's impossible for us to get through all those changes. What are the most common services and fees that impact mailers, and what are those changes?
Well, Jeff, as you said, there's a lot of options within special services. So what do you use? Do you use certificate of mailing? You really need to look at this. Post office box prices are seeing the largest increase with an average of 4%. Certified mail is up by 1.5% and return receipt by 2.9%. So make sure you know what services you're using and why the mail is being sent a certain way. So in other words, can you be using certificate of mailing instead of certified mail, and can you be using automated services? Talk to vendors about the tools they have available to process any of your specialized mailings.
So, Mark, when and where are the new rates published? I'm sure there isn't a rate fold anymore.
No, Jeff, when you use the word rate fold, you're showing our age. For those of you on the webinar, the Postal Service used to release the rates on a piece of paper that was folded 3 times. So rolled out, it was 11 by 24, and you could fold into thirds, and it became a 6-page document. And that was the entire rate increase. So the Postal Service process is no longer a rate fold. The Notice 123, that's the rates, is available on Postal Explorer, pe.usps.com, no www. And you can look at it either as HTML or a PDF document. And the current PDF is 75 pages long. That's significant and demonstrates how much our industry has changed. The new rates are available for downloaded not just as a PDF, but also as an Excel or CSV file. The Excel file has a tab for every rate class, complete with zone and weight tables.
Mark, earlier you mentioned the Postal Rate Commission's review of the rate-making rules. How does that impact this rate case?
So, Jeff, the PRC's findings was released on December 1st, 2017, with the mandatory 90-day window for comments. However, the PRC's never followed up with a final rule. But I do want to refresh our listeners on what the PRC did publish. They came to a split decision that some aspects of the system of regulating rates and classes for market-dominant products have worked as intended by the PAEA, that's the Postal Accountability and Enhancement Act of 2006. However, the system has not achieved the overall objective. The commissioners concluded that the system created rate changes that were consistent and predictable. We all know rates are going up in January. However, pricing efficiency wasn't increased. The U.S. Postal Service hasn't achieved sound financial health. There have been some efficiency gains and cost reductions, but there have been no retained earnings to address either their medium or long-term stability. Since the passage of the PAEA, the commissioners determined that the Postal Service hasn't maintained the same level of service standards. Further, they determined that the current system doesn't effectively encourage the Postal Service to improve service standards. With those findings in mind, the PRC recommended the following changes. A 2-pronged approach to complement rather than replace the CPIU price cap. So the first was a 2 percentage points of rate authority per class of mail per calendar year for each of the first 5 calendar years from the effective date of the rules. And then up to 1 percentage point of rate authority per class of mail per calendar year. That would be contingent on the Postal Service meeting or exceeding an operational efficiency based on a standard and adhering to service standard quality criteria. Now, there's been a lot published on the proposed rules. Many people say it goes too far in giving the Postal Service freedom to raise rates, while others say it doesn't go far enough. But what's interesting, as I said, the PRC has never implemented these rules, and they have been mum. There's been no press release, no public announcements. Now, it may have been that there were no presidentially appointed governors when they published these rules, or perhaps they were waiting for the president's task force report, or maybe they were hoping for legislative postal reform. Well, there now are confirmed governors. There may only be two, but there are two confirmed governors. The task force report was published in December, and legislative reform wasn't passed by the last Congress and looks pretty dim in the current Congress. So I'm hoping the PRC makes an announcement soon. They're past the 10-year mark. We're now into beyond the 11th year. They better do something soon.
Yes, agreed. So, Mark, can you explain what's going on with the dim weight rates?
So dimensional weight, or dim weight, is used to calculate shipping rates for large but light packages. So this is how dim weight works. First, weigh the package, write down the weight.
Okay.
Then you calculate the dim weight, which is length times width times height, all in inches, divided by 194. If the result yields a higher number than the actual weight, you pay the dimensional weight instead. So this makes sense because you're still taking up space in trucks, right? So under the rate change, priority mail parcels in all shipping zones would receive dim pricing for packages over 1 cubic foot. Previously, only priority mail parcels that were being delivered to zones 5 through 9 were impacted by dim. Also, the Postal Service wants to change the divisor from 194 to 166. Now, the rate changes were confirmed in the middle of the heaviest shipping season of the year. So large shippers and some, but not all, software providers asked for a delay in implementing the dim weight changes. The Postal Service decided to exercise caution and have delayed the dim weight changes until June 23rd, 2019.
Mm-hmm. So, Mark, let's move on and talk about forms and statements.
So, Jeff, along with the rates, there are new forms and statements required for the following. The first is the first class mail PS form 3600 FCM, the most common form for first class commercial mailers. There's also now a new form for package services, the 3605, priority mail 3600-PM, international mail form 3700, and the electronic verification system permit imprint form 3560. So if mailers need to check with their software providers to make sure that the proper forms are ready to be used on January 27th.
So last year, Mark, there were no mailing promotions at all, but they're back for 2019, correct?
That's right, Jeff. Last year, because there weren't any appointed governors, promotions couldn't be approved. There are 6 promotions approved for 2019, including a new one around informed delivery. The tactile, sensory, and interactive mail piece engagement promotion for USPS marketing mail, letters, and flats. That promotion period will run from February 1st, 2019 to July 31st, 2019. The emerging and advanced technology promotion for first class mail and USPS marketing mail will run from March 1st through August 31st, 2019. The earned value reply mail promotion, so that's for BRM, CRM, and share mail. That period will run from April 1st to June 30th, 2019. The personalized color trans promo promotion for first, and this is just for first class mail, runs from July 1st to December 31st, 2019. The mobile shopping promotion for USPS marketing mail, letters, and flats runs from August 1st to December 31st, 2019. And then the new one, the informed delivery promotion. That's for both first class mail and USPS marketing mail. And it runs from September 1 through November 30th, 2019.
Thanks, Mark. Can you provide our listeners with some tips on what they should be doing during the actual implementation of the new rates?
Absolutely. We've provided beyond tips. In the presentation, as we said, this will be available for download. We will also have our ebook available for download, all for free. We add a checklist for people to follow, and we've divided it into 3 areas. One is what you should be doing right now, what you'll do directly before the increases take effect, and then what you should be doing January 25th through 28th. So the first thing is what you should be doing now if you haven't already done so. The first is to send an announcement to your customers. And this, if you're a corporate mail center, means your internal customers and any external customers if you're a service provider. Let them know these changes are taking effect. Look at it how it will affect their bills and what you charge them. This is a terrific opportunity to show your customers that you're more than providing a service, you're adding value to the process. You're the expert, and that's why they use you. And just because you're an internal mail center doesn't mean you shouldn't be selling yourself to your internal customers. You should also meet with your local postal representatives. As we talked, there were preparation changes for first class mail, USPS marketing mail, and parcels. Meet with your postal service rep and go over how those induction changes impact your mail. Go over how the postage statement you're filling out today will look tomorrow, and the fact that you're sorting a special way. It's very important you spend time with your local reps. You may want to consider going and meeting with the business mail entry manager or their representative. You should be meeting with your meter and software representative. These can take place over the phone just to talk about when you receive the updates. How do you download the update for your digital meter? When is that taking place? How is that taking place? And who actually does the installation? Meet with your service representatives or discuss it with your service techs. With your software vendors, meet with them to talk about when you're going to receive updates, how you will do it, and then how you'll test to make sure it was properly received and installed. Meet with your mail center employees. Go over this presentation with them. Maybe have them listen to the recording, or at least cover the parts that impact your categories of mail. The PDF's available, and it's something you could do perhaps as a lunch and learn with your employees. And then you can stop and answer questions as you go along. The next phase is what you do on the end of the day on January 25th or 26th. So why 2 different days? Well, if you're generally a 5-day-a-week shop, in other words, you process mail Monday through Friday, January 25th is that Friday. But if you also enter mail on Saturday, we have January 26th. I recommend making these changes at the end of the day after you've closed out. Why? Because Mondays will be Mondays. You don't know what's going to hit you on Monday, January 28th when you walk through the door. So after you've closed out the day on Friday or Saturday, there's no immediate rush to get things done or to have problems resolved. Take this time to take the steps that will make your Monday go a lot easier. Upload any new software for your meters or forms. Post reminders around your mail center on the new rates and the increases taking effect. Post a reminder at the meters. Post a reminder at the inserters. If you have a customer service window, post a reminder at that window to remind customers and the clerks about the changes. Also go around and collect every single pre-printed form, put them in the recycle bin, and put out any new forms downloaded from the Postal Service. Remember, do this at the end of the day on the 25th or the 26th. Now, Monday the 28th. The first thing you want to do is send out another announcement to remind your customers, today's the day the postal rate changes take place. This should be an email you've already prepared, but send the announcement to all your customers, internal and external. Start the day with a briefing to all your mail center employees. This can be part of your daily 5-minute huddle, which we know everybody does on this call, and go over the new rates into effect. Go over any new preparation standards and any new forms. Remind them and then answer any questions they might have. Go around and test every meter in every online form. Now, because software is digital and many of them are tied to the clock on your PC, the forms and the software may not actually work until January 27th. So you want to test it first thing in the morning, or again, if you have that opportunity, go in on Sunday and check it then. Make sure your meters are putting the right amount of postage on your 1 ounce, your pre-sort mail, etc. And make sure the online forms have the new rates loaded in them. You may want to implement additional quality control checks throughout the day. I'm sure all of our listeners already have quality control checks in place for their mail. On a day when rates change, you want to have new and additional quality control checks just to make sure nothing gets missed. The last thing I recommend is I would have a manager or a supervisor accompany your mail to the Postal Service. You know, the first time you enter discounted mail with the Postal Service, I always have a manager or supervisor ride along because there may be questions. You have to remember, this is a substantial change for the Postal Service too. You want to make sure you have somebody there that will work to resolve the problem with the Postal Service. Ask the right questions and answer the right questions. And you can't just throw this on your clerks and drivers. This is a wonderful opportunity to step up and show that additional support.
Mark, before we close, let's review any questions we've received. And you're doing such a great job, you don't have any questions, sir.
Okay.
All right. So you've covered a lot of information with us today. I want to thank you for taking the time to walk us through the USPS rate increase. Do you have any closing comments?
Well, there are several things. The first is, here's a slide on resources. The USPS.com website has received numerous awards for its ease of use, and I will agree, I think it's easy to use. As we mentioned, they have the price list easily available, and they have the links to all the Federal Registry notices. There are a couple of areas deeper within the USPS website that you should be spending time on. The first is Postal Explorer. This is where you can easily access the Domestic Mail Manual, Notice 123, and other publications to allow you to quickly get information on how to prepare your mail. The DMM Advisory is one of the most important services the Postal Service provides. It allows you to receive regular updates via email from the Postal Service on pricing changes, regulatory changes, and potential notices going into the Federal Register. So how do you sign up? It's very simple. You send an email to dmmadvisory@usps.com. Include your name and email address in the body and put subscribe as the subject line. This is one of the most important tools that we use as consultants, and we recommend all of our customers use it as well. There's no way I could have kept up with this rate increase if I didn't have the DMM advisory notices coming into my inbox. I also recommend that you sign up for the PCC Insider newsletter. This is often the same information about the DMM advisory, but it also includes information about online courses available from the Postal Services that are available, or courses that are going to be available for PCCs to present their members. Now, I always like to end this webinar by quoting a friend of mine, Doug Ainsworth. Doug ran a very successful pre-sort company and owned a direct mail company. And when I was running a shop, Doug would tell me, Mark, you need to know your mail. And that's one thing he always knew. He always knew his mail. So what does that mean? You need to know the content of your mail. What class should you be using? Is it first class mail? Could it qualify as USPS marketing mail, or maybe bound printed matter, or meteor mail? You need to know the content of your mail to determine class and then the category within the class. You need to know the characteristics. What's the shape? What's the size? What's the weight? And as we were talking about with DIM, What's the dimensions of your piece? Because that's going to define what class you fall into. And then you may want to think about how can you change the characteristics of your mail piece to take advantage of the lowest possible rates. And then you need to know your quantities by category. What volumes you're sending by class of mail, what volumes you're sending by entry point category, and what volumes you're sending to what sort density. This isn't a one-time thing. You need to be looking at this continuously. Now, I have here weekly, monthly, and quarterly reviews, but I have to tell you something. The best mailers out there, whether they're service providers or implants, they review their mail daily. Every day they're looking at their mail. What's different about today's mail? What could they change about today's mail? And could they have delayed today's mail to go out with tomorrow and get even greater discounts? You need to be looking at your mail constantly. There should be, now this isn't necessarily a full-time job, but a very important part of someone's job, somebody with a keen analytical mind who reports to you and reports to your organization. The last thing I want to emphasize is using the Postal Service. As they like to say, USPS begins with you. The Postal Service has spent a lot of time educating their managers and business service network on the changes. They've educated their sales force on what's available for commercial mailers. Take the time to use your local resources. Meet with your business mail entry manager. Meet with your account representative. Meet with your mail piece design analyst. What changes can you make to your characteristics, to your content, to your quantities to really maximize the discounts that are available to you? Remember, to be successful, know your mail.
Mark, thank you very much for the information you shared with us today. And I'd also like to thank our listeners. If you'd like any additional information, please visit our website at www.berkshire-company.com. And we look forward to seeing everyone at the National Postal Forum on May 5th through the 8th, 2019 at the Indianapolis Convention Center in Indianapolis, Indiana. And again, remember, to receive an extra 10% off of your 2019 NPF registration, be sure to check the box labeled, I have a different discount code, and enter the code mark 2019 in the discount code box, then click Apply. To learn more about registration options and opportunities to save, visit www.npf.org for details. Until then, goodbye.